Hi there, Dr. Carmen McGuinness here with you. So this week we're going to talk about daydreaming. In today's world, daydreaming is not typically thought of as a good thing. In fact, children in schools often get referred for ADD, attention deficit disorder, if they are frequently caught daydreaming. At work, we might be considered to be distracted or even lazy if we're found staring off into the distance, as I was just doing. I was actually watching a robin in a tree right over there. He had stopped singing just a moment ago, and I was wondering what caught his attention, and then he flew off. So if we're caught daydreaming, and I was just doing it again, on the job, we are often thought to be lazy or distracted, or perhaps we might be assumed to be lost in worry. Or sick. Co-workers might ask, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" if they find us staring off into the distance. When in fact, all we were doing was momentarily being alone with our thoughts. Now, I understand the importance of attention as it relates to scheduling and making money mostly, but also just general care of oneself and one's family and friends in life. I've owned private schools, educational and behavioral clinics, taught university, and for 20 years I ran a multinational company which delivered products all over the world. So I do get it. We have class schedules, meetings, conferences, appointments, and of course we have deadlines. I understand and give my full consent to be bound by these. Therein lies our self-discipline and our paycheck. However, there is one thing missing here, and that is our success, our real success, I mean. Not just getting to class, turning in the assignment, showing up for the therapy session, conference, or meeting on time, or getting the product out the door and on the truck on time. I'm talking also about real success. Success as in thinking of the next great idea or product, or solving the big problem. According to numerous studies in the field of cognition and neuroscience, half of our thoughts are, in fact, daydreams. If this is true, it could be said that all of us have attention deficit disorder. Isn't that an interesting prospect? And that those that get the official diagnosis are those who aren't actually very good at daydreaming. Maybe because they weren't allowed to. Why would they not be good at daydreaming? Perhaps because schools and workplaces fail to allow and encourage time for what I call free mental space. Think about what the average worker does on his or her lunch break. We might rush out and try to find food amidst the traffic of thousands of other food finders. Or we might actually work through our lunch break, getting no free time whatsoever. And of course, there are those who use this time to catch up on personal matters like returning emails, making callbacks, catching up with friends, Facebook, whatever it is. I suggest instead that we pack a light lunch from home and find a park, or if it's winter and snowy where you are, perhaps a peaceful common area in the mall under a sunlit indoor tree. Time alone, even in public places, around people, so that we can find our mental space. And you won't engage in conversation with these people, of course. This is malls and parks. I'm talking about alone time. This is invaluable to letting the mind wander. So getting out of the office is my point. Workplaces could easily accomplish this by allowing for frequent breaks in outdoor places, or pseudo-outdoor settings, indoor-outdoor places. The problem is that schools and offices don't teach a culture of valuing daydreaming. In fact, they teach quite the opposite. But the other problem is that schools get their ethos from businesses, and business needs. And businesses tend to think of productivity as fully focused on-task behavior. Think about it. Back in the 40s and 50s, schools were set up like factory workers were set up. Little desks resembling work areas, maybe sewing machines if you were working on making clothes or shoes or some other product, and a boss or teacher at the head of the room. In the 70s and 80s, we started working at tables in teams like workplaces were then. And today, schools are centered around projects and project completion, with each member of the team having a slice of responsibility, no one with their eye on the big picture. In my view, it's getting worse and worse, and in none of these scenarios was daydreaming encouraged or even allowed. The result, of course, is that children don't know how to do it. They might still do it, and indeed they do, but they don't know that they're doing it. They don't know how to do it. And they are discouraged and may feel, in fact, shame or neglect of their real work, their schoolwork, if they're caught doing it. Next, we'll address why daydreaming is actually good for you, and so what the benefits are, and then finally we'll talk a bit more about how to actually do it, since, as I said at the onset, it is something of a lost art. So, the benefits of daydreaming. Among the benefits of daydreaming is increased productivity. Researchers have found that the mind wanders about 47% of the time. Those whose minds wander 52% of the time were actually found to be more productive than those whose minds wander only 42% of the time, again with 47 being the average. So if your mind wanders a little bit more than the average, you're more productive than the average guy. And if your mind wanders a little bit less than the average, you're less productive than the average guy. So that would kind of tell us that mind wandering, daydreaming, is probably good for productivity. But why? Possibly because they have more time, more mind space for creative ideas to emerge. And here we have another benefit of daydreams: increased productivity, increased creativity. Constructive planning is another benefit. So we're up to 3. 1, increased productivity. 2, increased creativity. And 3, constructive planning. In constructive planning, we are actually sort of putting things together. We are rearranging the furniture in our mind space to connect the dots between daydreams. And here's yet another, a 4th, solving open-ended problems. Researchers at Georgia Tech found that daydreams are the best format for solving open-ended problems. Problems that don't have a particular resolution. There might be many ways to get to the end. And yet another one, a 5th, is perceived quality of life. Other researchers found that the frequency and duration of daydreams participates in our perceived quality of life. Now, to define that, we're talking about the opposite of depression. So those who daydream often are less depressed, or perceive themselves to be less depressed than those who report that they daydream infrequently. So with those who were able to daydream uninterrupted for long periods of time, reporting the best quality of life over those whose daydreams were frequently interrupted. And here's a 6th, improved interpersonal relationships. Multiple studies have shown that couples who both report a higher percentage of time spent daydreaming also score high on surveys of relationship health. Why? Possibly because each has the time and mind space for their own interior world to unfold. It's well known in relationship counseling that couples who thrive apart thrive together. So, there's 6 benefits for you. Now let's talk a little bit about how to do it, how to daydream. First and foremost, understand that it's not something that we have to work at. Daydreaming, according to all authorities, is actually the natural state of the mind. So a first step is in changing your attitude about daydreaming, simply allowing yourself the time you need in your mind space, and respecting yourself enough to respect your time alone with your thoughts, whether you're actually alone or not. Say no to jibber-jabbers. I mean this with all due respect to those who jibber-jabber at you, but if you're not participating in the conversation, not responding, but simply providing a closed ear and a blank face to someone who is unable to have their own internal thoughts, basically making you part of their daydream, either move away from them, or if you're not able to, say it's a roommate or the guy in the next cubicle at work, put your foot down. Just say, I really need my alone time, and probably earbuds might be good for this as well, if that's a possibility. You might also notice when you're prone to daydreaming. For many people, the commute to work and back is a natural time to daydream. Why? Possibly because of the motion of things going by you. According to Francine Shapiro, the developer of EMDR, a therapeutic procedure similar but definitely not the same as hypnosis, motion in our near periphery of the eye can bring on a deeper state of consciousness. Hypnotists know this as well. So if the car is a place to daydream, then do it. Now, please, disclaimer here, do not get hurt. Drive. First drive and daydream. Do not get in an accident. But also allow your mind the time it deserves rather than trying to plan out your day at work or rehashing what happened at work if you're on your way home, just because society tells you that you should. And if you find that your commute in the car is beneficial time for you to daydream, then you may find that a walk has the same effect. It was actually on a walk that Dr. Shapiro, the EMDR developer that I mentioned, noticed how her thoughts wandered and had the initial creative impetus for EMDR. Also important to daydreaming is noting your daydreams. Give them the attention that anything else you write down or try to remember deserves. Society tells us that those things we think of other than the topic on the table, the meeting, the lecture, whatever, is just noise in our head. But it's not. It's your daydreams, and they deserve your attention, at least as you are letting them go away and getting back to what you were doing. Make a note, make a mental note, if that's all you can do, so that you can get back to that daydream. We know from what I've shared today that this isn't so, that these things are not noise in our head. So make that mental note of your daydream so that you can get back to it, so that you can give it the attention it deserves. Last, but certainly not least, is the importance of time alone. This is especially important when you are training up your daydreaming skills. It's no coincidence that those of us who score on the introversion side of the intro-extro scales also report a higher percentage of time spent daydreaming. Why? Because we make time to be alone, because we like to be alone. There's less noise in the system when we're alone. There's more us. You frequently see me here in my garden, for instance, where I often record my weekly segments. You've heard me call it my YouTube studio, and it really sort of is. Well, that's because no one bothers me out here. Believe me, I understand the constraints of life, scheduling, etc. I open my private school 40 minutes from here at 7 a.m. So I have a 40-minute commute to get to the school to open it at 7 a.m. And I spend 3 hours a day overseeing a study hall in said school. I see 2 to 4 clients every afternoon in my psychology clinic or online in my HIPAA secure video platform. But I always, always, always make time for nature. When I have a couple of hours off in the middle of the day, I will go for a drive. Again, daydream time. I will walk around the grocery store. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Great daydream time. And I will stop at a park on my way back from the grocery store and just sit for a few minutes. Another trick is interior space. Interior as in the house, not in the mind, but inside. Inside, it's important to have places where you actually can be alone, at least sort of alone. Places that other people don't necessarily want to be. In today's homes, we're so focused on the family that, we have these movie rooms and we have, big dining tables and things like that. But in fact, we sometimes need a place where we can go and sit and munch on our breakfast alone, or go and think, or perhaps start to watch a TV show alone and not. Just sort of space out and realize we haven't been paying attention and might just want to turn on some soft music and think about whatever else we're thinking about. Now, I don't mean to in any way devalue the family. I've raised 4 children of my own, and I have 4 grandchildren and another one on the way. But having time alone actually increases our likelihood of spending quality time with those family members later, after we've had our alone time. So I hope this has been helpful for you today. If it has, I hope you will visit the links in the description box, in particular the link on raising your inner child, which you may find to resonate if this did. And I look forward to seeing you on a Wednesday for my midweek sneak peek. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful week. I will see you soon.